كتير طرق وسط الحياة تاهوا فيها ناس، وطرق تبان مفروشة ورد وتنتهي بألم وضيق، لكن الطريق للفرحة وطريق الخلاص عند المسيح. أصل المسيح هو الحياة، هو الطريق 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 الطريق
And here we are again. Welcome to The Way TV tonight. We do have a special guest, as you well know. I don't let too many guests on my show. If you do get onto this show, it's only because you're at the top of the being the best. Tonight we're honored to have Chris Logan from an undisclosed location. If you ever see a guy walking around 5'10", 170 pounds in Donald Trump, red, white, and blue, you'll know who he is. But he's smart, unlike me. Posted my picture all over the place, so it's easy for the Muslim Brotherhood to know who to kill. This guy's a lot smarter than me. So Christopher Logan, he's probably got, I would say, I'm guessing, between 500,000 and 1 million viewers, listeners. You know how the internet works. Extremely influential, knows Islam inside and out. He's all the time debating Muslims and doing very, very good work. If you want to see him on Facebook, you can go to North American Infidels, or you can see if you can log into his Christopher Logan and Friends. And with no further ado, 5'10", 170 pounds, Captain Demento Insano in the Donald Trump red, white, and blue. Welcome, Chris Logan.
How are you today, Mr. Klein?
Well, as you can tell, I'm in rare form because I'm talking to a fellow belligerent, and I love it.
Well, I'm sure they're measuring my casket now. That's the description, but we'll put that aside.
So you wanted to ask me a couple of key questions on personal experiences involving Donald Rumsfeld and George W. Bush and the political correctness of the Pentagon, the United States Marine Corps, and fire away.
Well, basically, most of us that follow this subject see that Obama and company were rolling out the red carpet for Islam. They had the Department of Justice trying to intimidate towns and cities that oppose mosque construction. But from what I see, it's not just the Democrats. This has been going on for decades with Republicans as well. And I'd like if you could give the audience a little insight on how George Bush, Rumsfeld, and for years, I've been saying the Pentagon is part of the problem with Islam, and people didn't want to hear it. And I know you have some insight that most people don't have, so I would appreciate if you would educate the audience a little bit.
Sure. Great question. Yeah. I'm a former Marine enlisted and officer, United States Marine Corps. My background is cell warfare, guerrilla warfare. I operated in Vietnam, just south of North Vietnam, up by Hamburger Hill. I was fluent in Vietnamese, and I operated virtually surrounded at nighttime by the North Vietnamese Army. And because our program was so successful, the United States Marine Corps brought me back in to brief the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force senior officers, major up through general, and they wanted to know how we could survive in that environment without high tech. We didn't have night vision goggles, and came down there, and we used human intelligence, which means we operated like James Bond or like Wyatt Earp. We went and lived with the people. I was fluent in Vietnamese, and then at nighttime I could go out and stop the North Vietnamese Army from coming in and acting just like ISIS. They were coming in and cutting people's throats to death, raping girls, murdering, stealing rice, corn, and peanuts. Okay, so long story short, for the Battle of Fallujah II, I was asked to come down and brief 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, about 100 senior officers, and I explained how we gathered human intelligence and went out and stopped and destroyed the enemy, and I got a standing ovation. They called me up later on and they offered me a job to counsel the Marines going to Battle of Fallujah II, how we operated in Vietnam, how we did battle planning and did human intelligence gathering. So I was offered a lot more than a $500 an hour, but I didn't feel comfortable even with $500. Make a long story short, came back, did our first presentation to about 100 Marines or so on Islamic battle planning, and we were telling the truth about. Yeah, we were telling the truth, exactly. And I didn't know it. I had no idea. I had no idea. And so I'm up there waxing eloquent. I'm a former battle planner as an officer for one of the key battalions of the Marine Corps, so I lived in battle planning, being shot at with RPGs and AK-47s from less than 20 feet away in Vietnam, and then I did it in peacetime in Camp Pendleton for the Marines. So I'm up there going through the paradigm and matrix of battle planning that all of the Marines and Army infantry use, and I was explaining know your enemy, and I said, hey, look, if you know Muhammad, if you know what Muhammad did, if you know that he was a liar, a cheat, a rapist, a pedophile, a murderer, and I got to about there, and oh my goodness, all hell broke loose, and it was very interesting. A full colonel who was the G3, now the G3 is, G stands for general or general staff, he reported directly to General Mad Dog Mattis, and he pulled me out of class. He said, hey, Mr. Klein, I appreciate what you're doing, but you can't talk about Muhammad or Islam in that fashion. And I said, okay. Why not? He says, I have been commanded by the Pentagon, which would be Donald Rumsfeld, and he was commanded by George W. Bush, that the Marines and the Army going over to Iraq and Afghanistan had to be politically correct, and that meant you could not say anything disparaging about Muhammad or Islam. So the colonel and I got into rather an intense discussion because I'm a former Marine officer. I have a lot of hot kinetic battle experience, and yet this full colonel, who was the battle planner for 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, probably the most powerful military unit in the history of the world, was commanding me to lie. And I told him that. I said, in other words, what you're telling me to do is to omit the truth about Muhammad and Islam. He said, well, I didn't say that. I said, hey, Colonel, come on. Face to face, dog to dog, we're not backing down. I said, omitting the truth is lying, and you want me to lie. And he got really hot, of course, and I said, well, okay, look, if I leave out the truth, how would I feel if I knew that United States Marines were being suicide bombed or killed through the acts of how Muhammad battle planned? What did Muhammad do? What was really interesting also, as I explained this to the colonel, he said to me, look, Mr. Klein, if you want to keep your $500 an hour job, you got to cut this stuff out. I said, I'm not cutting anything out. I'm telling the truth. How would I live? How could I possibly live knowing that Marines were being suicide bombed, et cetera? Now, that was around 2004. So in 2007, my son was suicide bombed. My son was suicide bombed. My son was suicide bombed. People, they can't register that. They can't. When I tell people my son was suicide bombed, they turn into Frank Gaffney and Gorka and Zudi Jasser. Oh, did I say that? Oh, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. I shouldn't criticize them. But in any case, my son was suicide bombed in 2007. Significantly, he survived the suicide bombing because I had taught him that the Saudi Arabians and Qatar pays bounties based on the rank of somebody when they're going to suicide bomb them. So that morning when my son was getting ready to go out, he was approached by a Muslim who asked him, is your rank high rank or low rank? That was the only English this guy knew, and my son knew immediately, Dad taught me this, I'm going to get suicide bombed. And he went to his officers, and he ran into the same thing. Now, the Marine Corps colonel told me, Mr. Klein, you can keep the job. We like your style. We like your experience, and we love what you're talking about. All you got to do, just leave this stuff out about Muhammad and Islam. And so I said, no, you know what? First day's free. You can keep the $500. I'm done. If I can't tell the truth, I don't want anything to do with it. So getting back now, the political correctness of political correctness. When my son went to his officers after he knew he was going to get suicide bombed, he was told to shut up by his officers and they had to be politically correct. Now that was also under Robert Gates, who was Republican Secretary of Defense. So this goes with George W. Bush to Rumsfeld to Robert Gates, who was also Republican. The stuff with the Bush family, in 1998, George Herbert Walker Bush with Gerald Ford and with John Sununu, you see John Sununu all the time on Fox News, Republican, and also the governor of California, Pete Wilson, went to the horrible, nasty, evil, wicked, terrorist Muslim Brotherhood, Ikhwan Muslimin ISIS mosque in Los Angeles. And George Herbert Walker Bush and Gerald Ford both inaugurated this mosque in Los Angeles, and they both said that our job is to help Islam spread throughout the United States. I've been to that mosque. Muslims are extremely dangerous. We had about 12 police officers there to protect us. It was very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So that was back in 1998. Now I actually have the Los Angeles Times article about George Bush and Gerald Ford talking about Islam being so great. And I started posting it all over the internet and reading it on this TV show, and lo and behold, the Saudi Arabians hacked that site. So I have the URL. I think I've emailed it to you before, Chris. But if you go to that site now, it comes up bright red and it says, do not go into this site, your computer will be hacked. So go ahead. I think that's pretty good on explaining the background with the Bush family.
That's very interesting, but very disturbing.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was shocked when they told me to shut up. I went, United States Marine Corps, you're telling me to shut up on battle planning?
So Bush and company, the Pentagon, it didn't matter if more Marines died. What mattered was protecting Islam. It's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, you have to understand. Yeah, that is absolutely correct. And now my son is an Army officer. He was a senior enlisted sergeant at the time that he was blown up. But see, here's the United States Marine Corps and United States Army both saying the same things. You got to be politically correct. They don't care. I have a number. If you get killed or wounded, they don't care as long as you're politically correct. I have a number of friends, Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Air Force, who've gone over to Iraq and Afghanistan, and of course I talk to them all the time. And of course, due to Benghazi, in fact, I'm holding up the new book, Deception by Kenneth Timmerman, and he comes out and he proves that Nikula and myself were both right. But the same thing, in the book, he's talking about political correctness, so that when the FBI came out to my house, and now I'm under protection because ISIS published my photograph to have me murdered, and I work with the FBI. So I told the FBI about the San Bernardino massacre 3 months before it happened, and I told them, I'm holding up a picture of the leader of the mosque in Corona, California, who's Muslim Brotherhood. That's what the four fingers means, and the symbol over the top means he supports ISIS. I've published this picture all over Facebook, and I got this picture from his Facebook account. And Chris, you've seen his, I post this all the time, you've seen it. And this guy here, who was linked up to the San Bernardino massacre, and when I showed this picture to the FBI and to the lead detective sheriff of Riverside County, they said, we can't do anything. And they both, all of them, there was 3 of them, they were mad and they were frustrated. They said, yeah, we have to be politically correct. We can't do anything about it. You still on there? Did I lose Chris?
Hello?
Hell, there? Okay, sorry, man. Go ahead. Did you hear anything I said?
I heard everything. So
You're-
their hands are basically tied. We have a government on both sides of the aisle, or hopefully this will change under Trump, that is, to different degrees, rolling out the red carpet for Islam. And we have a media that also protects Islam. So we're getting hit from all angles.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're getting hit by all angles, and the only guys allowed to get into the Pentagon under George W. Bush and George Herbert Walker Bush, the only guys allowed to get in there and talk had to be politically correct. If you start telling the truth, you're going to lose your job like I did, or Steve Coughlin, you're going to lose it right away. So automatically, bingo, if you're allowed to talk to the Pentagon or Homeland Security or the FBI or any of the 16 intelligence agencies, the only way you can get in is you got to be politically correct. So if your name is Frank Gaffney or Gorka or Jazzer in particular, to me, Jazzer is one of the most dangerous guys in the United States. And Zuhdi Jazzer, if you want to sue me for defamation of character, please do so. I'd love to go into deposition and we could talk about what you do. Because he thinks you can modify Islam through modifying the Quran. That's impossible. If you do that, you will be killed. And yet Zuhdi Jazzer is brought into Fox News, as well as Gorka and Frank Gaffney and these other guys. Ralph Peters comes on too, and Ralph Peters will tell you what a bad dude. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Army. He's a bad guy. And they come on. It's not that I don't have respect for these guys. I don't have respect for them because when they offered me the $500 an hour, but I had to lie, I said, no deal.
Right.
No deal. But these guys, they want to get in. Okay, now, hopefully, this will change under Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has been brainwashed to a certain degree because he works with billionaire, trillionaire Saudis. However, he loves America like you and I do, and I think it'll take about a year to 3 years. He will realize all of a sudden, oh my goodness, every one of the 3,000 plus Saudi Arabian funded mosques in the United States are all supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and ISIS. So let me let you talk. Go ahead and talk.
All right. Well, I have a question from a friend who knew I was coming on the show, and since you brought it up, he wanted to know what your opinion was on Sebastian Gorka. Is he an ally in this war, or is he out of the Frank Gaffney mold where they won't name the enemy and they want to support the moderates, which, if we look across the West, moderate Muslims are not going to save us. That's just a fantasy. It's a question from a friend named Lodi.
It's a great question because Gaffney and Gorka, Jazzer, Ralph Peters, Jack Keane, even Jack Flynn to a certain degree, they'd never been involved in close guerrilla warfare, close cell warfare that I was as an 18, 19-year-old kid. I mean, I was involved. I had one guy 2 feet killed in front of me. Okay, no big deal. That's all part of being in the infantry, and my firefights were all less than 50 feet. And one night, when the North Vietnamese Army ran into my Marine Corps unit, there were women, widows, and orphans in between us, a village of about 100, and a bunch of them got wounded, killed, burned alive. And so in my head all the time is the wail of widows and the sobbing of orphans. And so this stuff, to me, as an 18, 19-year-old kid, I had to coordinate 6 ambushes a day in Vietnamese because I worked with the Vietnamese units, and then I had to go out at night with no night vision goggles and stop these guys from murdering and raping all of my friends. Okay, so the shock and the PTSD that's in my head all the time, I don't yield, I don't back down. And I don't say, hey, these guys, we can work with them, they can modify Islam, we can get along with a moderate Muslim. No, as Mao Zedong wrote in his book on guerrilla warfare, it takes 100 families or 400 people to support one guerrilla warrior, one terrorist. So when they say, oh, the moderates are okay, no, that's not true, because the moderates are aiding and abetting, and they're gathering the intelligence so that these 500,000 Muslim Brotherhood guys in the greater Los Angeles, and probably 1 million of them in New York City, and the Atlantic coast, they can't operate. The suicide bomber cannot suicide bomb you without the moderate Muslim out there aiding and abetting, helping him. The most dangerous Muslim is a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old boy in Iraq or Afghanistan with a cell phone when he watches our soldiers and Marines go out on the road, these 5 to 10-year-old boys, moderate Muslims, aid and abet their older brothers and their dads to go out and murder and kill the Marines and the soldiers over there in Iraq and Afghanistan. If you don't understand that, which either Gaffney does not understand, Gorka doesn't understand, General Jack Flynn doesn't understand, Ralph Peters doesn't understand it, KT McFarland, they don't understand it. Obviously CNN, see, for them it's not real. You sit behind a blackboard, hey, when you walk through the hamburger of what used to be your friend, now he's been hit by an RPG or a Claymore mine, there's nothing left of the guy. Or you hear women and children screaming and yelling, all of a sudden this stuff gets all in your head for real. So Gorka and Gaffney and Ralph Peters and these guys, they see the pictures of it. They see the pictures of what ISIS does, cutting off heads and putting them on poles, but they're not there. They're not there. They haven't seen it. And so their weakness fits in perfect with political correctness through George Herbert Walker Bush, through George W. Bush, through Rumsfeld, through Robert Gates, through Obama, through Hillary. But I think with Trump, he's going to see through it. For some reason, Trump he's able to connect with us middle-class people, even though he's a billionaire. So, yes, I do not trust Gorka. I do not trust Jasser. I don't trust Gaffney, Pipes, Horowitz, any of these guys. Horowitz was working with me 11, 12 years ago, and his fundraising people who were fundraising him were calling me up and asking me questions. When I said, you can't trust any of these Muslims, and frankly, as their numbers grow, they're going to attack just like they did in Fallujah or Mosul or they do in Iraq or Afghanistan. So we're led by an inevitable dragging to the future culmination, which is going to be all-out jihad in the United States. So I'm not backing down from these people. And you know what, Chris? You're doing such a great job. People's eyes are starting to open up. You don't back down. I've seen you. We're on the email list with these guys, Frank Gaffney and Guandolo and all these other guys. We see they just keep backing down because they want their money, 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 money. The love of money is the root of all evil. The death knell of every republic is foreign money. And the Saudi Arabians, the Saudi Arabians, I'm holding up a picture right now of Anwar al-Awlaki. In San Diego, this guy was operating in San Diego. He was born in New Mexico. And he was operating, he's the guy in charge who coordinated all the airplanes that flew into the World Trade Center. And the 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission redacted and censored all that. And then we found out that George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush's good buddy, Prince Bandar, gave him $130,000 to fly into the World Trade Center. Yeah, that's why I don't trust any of these guys.
I fully agree with your point, and I'd like to add to it.
Does sugarcoat that enough for you, bro?
These so-called moderate Muslims. Now, if we compare this to Nazism, not all Nazis killed.
Right.
They were Nazi cooks, they were Nazi secretaries. They didn't kill. Maybe some of them would have never killed anyone. They don't have it in them. But they did their part to keep the machine rolling.
Correct.
So if you support the Quran, you support Muhammad, who is a total madman, you're part of the problem. And these smiling Muslims, these non-violent Muslims, like Zuhdi Jasser, who's probably the most dangerous Muslim in America.
Correct.
They mislead the public into believing one thing. And this is what Frank Gaffney sells. This is a business for him. He sells the notion that there could be a peaceful coexistence with Islam. And that is never going to happen in the end.
Never happened. 1,400 years. The station here is Egyptian Christians, and I work with them all the time. During the Arab Spring, one of our cameramen in Cairo was shot in the head and killed. All the people here, they know how dangerous. When we made the movie that was blamed for Benghazi, here, Deception, the movie, it all came out. These people, they know there is no such thing as a moderate Muslim. I've been working, I'm an honorary Middle East Christian. I got an award by Pope Shenouda, the Coptic Church. I've been with these people. I've seen them. I've been to Anaheim and Ohio, and I've been to Missouri and California and Arizona, and everywhere I go, gee whiz, all I run into is Muslims who want to murder me, and it's the moderates in the background that are pointing, hey, he's the guy you want to kill. It's like, there you
Right
go.
There he is. There he is.
Yeah, Zuhdi Jasser is the biggest. He's very dangerous. You know, the United States Navy was infiltrated by the German Bund before and during World War II. A lot of people don't know that. Just go look it up, German Bund, B-U-N-D, which stands for, it's German for colony. And Hitler was, the United States Navy was infiltrated by the German Nazis. Well, what better way to join the Navy and see the world? Join the Navy and you can go all over the world. So if you're a Muslim and you want to get in good as a medical doctor, you're going to have admirals and generals filling your ear and telling secrets, you know, like Hillary Clinton and the email deal and General Cartwright is spilling his guts, you know, the 4-star general. That stuff, I can tell you right now, when Zuhdi Jasser was on a ship, the captain of the ship and the admirals and the generals, they go immediately to the medical doctor and they just start confiding in him. And that's why the German Nazis infiltrated the United States Navy. Also remember, which I know you know, I don't have to tell you, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem recruited the Waffen-SS out of Yugoslavia, Kosovo, Albania, and Bosnia. Then after World War II, those were all, and he was Muslim Brotherhood. All those Muslim Brotherhood went to either South America, but many, many, many of them went to Egypt, and they're deeply involved with the stuff with ISIS and Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Boko Haram, all that stuff. Before I forget, I got a flag here. You can't see it. It's a Shahada. I've got it in front of my face. It says, this is a Shahada. This is the battle flag. I asked people the other night, I was speaking, and I held it up. And, you know, there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is messenger. So I held this up. I had about 75 people in it. I said, what terrorist group uses this battle flag? So one person, you know, fearfully said, ISIS. And I said, yeah, ISIS. Well, who else? Who else? And then I said, who else? Come on, they all use the same Shahada. This is on all the battle flags of all the Muslim terrorists in the world. Somebody said, Taliban. I go, yeah, Taliban. Who else? There's Boko Haram. Yeah, Boko Haram. And who else? Al-Qaeda. Yeah. They all use the same thing. And Zuhdi Jasser out there saying he's going to change this? Pardon my French, ladies and gentlemen, but that's bullshit. It ain't going to happen. So I know I can't get censored. I got censored. It was too late. But there you go. It's so serious, just like when they wanted me to lie for the Marine Corps. It's so serious, I wasn't going to do it. Thank God I didn't, and I told my son so he wouldn't get killed. But yes, the Pentagon and all these guys are all politically correct, and they've never really been involved in hot combat, and so they don't give a rip. They take their money. They don't care.
Fascinating information you always have, Steve. The audience is going to love to hear this when I replay it tomorrow.
Yep. All right, good show. You got about 20 seconds left. Yep, we're done.
We're done.
في كتير طرق وسط الحياة تاهوا فيها ناس، وطرق تبان مفروشة ورد وتنتهي بألم وضيق، لكن الطريق للفرحة وطريق الخلاص عند المسيح، أصل المسيح